fluoride in your water. Do you know like Fen and Prozac? Those are all fluoride-based chemicals. They know exactly what they're doing because then they understand that you're going to take it up if you don't have any iodine. It's in the same family. They react the same. They're related to one another. Case closed. But you probably have to hear it from them, right? Come on, we're gonna go to, let me play another clip. Hour and 20. Let me see, let me go back to this. Hour and 20. Benchmark is at an hour and 20 minutes. And this documentary is called The Great Color. And again, you know, Copyright Act 1976, purposes of fair use and obviously analysis and social commentary. That's what it's all about. I'm going to start right here at 119.
In my house, we got away with plastic packaging as well, and if you look close enough, you'll notice these 5-gallon jugs are all glass. These water benders are virtually everywhere, and the best part about this option is that I can get 25 gallons of the cleanest water I can find for $5. And for those of us that can't afford a reverse osmosis system for our house, it's a good start. Remember, it's all about limiting your exposure.
But the big problem is, you can get the best water in the world to drink and cook with. But what do you do about your shower?
In fact, I would even say don't shower in tap water. That's so toxic that, look, where I live now, I'm drinking and showering in either rainwater or well water.
We have the ability financially to purchase these filters and this purification system. It is the most important investment you can make in your family. You really need to invest in yourself, in your food, in what you're drinking, and more than you are in your clothes or your electronics or your car. It is the priority.
So you see what they said? You see, look at the message that they have to go through. Remember they talked about investing in those filters. Newsflash, what did we just say those filters are? They're carbon filters. We don't even have to have filters technically if we really believe in ourselves because the carbon is in our... How do you think we survived for so long? They was dumping that in that water. They, like they said, but they have been re-engineered. When we talk about the Flint water crisis and the bacteria, remember they discovered the bacteria that can splice through diamond. This is what they're in the lab doing. Remember, we know that they're bringing forth elements that are able to do it. First, they have to give them a little bit of carbon. Then they have to put it in something and then give it to us. Because remember, we talked about they're digging up non-renewable resources. Resources that we don't need to dig up because we possess the energy. So like we said before, how are they going to have your best interest at heart when they're extracting the godlike molecule out of the earth, which holds heat? That's why they said even when the sun is not out, they can get cancer from radiation. Because the radiation is everywhere. It's in the trees. It's in the ground. It's in their buildings. It's everywhere. And it's inside you. That's why, like we say, we feel it amongst ourselves. Like we always feel like, oh, okay, we're invincible, you know, because we stood through so much. Black people always have that in their heart. They like, oh, we'll survive. Because we know we'll survive. We're made out of diamond. But we won't survive this. They have now, like they said, they fear the 7 that bottom one. They now have the ability possibly to get elements or elemental beings in here that will be able to take us down. Remember when 9/11 towers went down? This is so powerful. I'm about to break it down to you. Remember we said that his towers are made out of cement and his towers was made out of steel. And then what did he do? He vaporized the steel, or it came down even if it was a controlled demolition. Look how he destroyed carbon instantly. He showed you symbolically on TV.
And they did vaporize, I believe, half of one building. Like, you can watch it over in slow motion, you would actually see one of the buildings that actually got vaporized. And it was a drone being used. On top of that, some other technology. Dig deep in this and find out what I found out.
That I have found the weapon to destroy carbon. The real man is steel, because remember when you go back to the movie, think about it. The so-called Superman left this planet because the sun had died. He said this sun is much younger. We're going to get to that. The sun had died. And see, you know, was able to be made strong, and then what? He had to have allegiance to these blue bloods. They're like, who are you going to fight for? Because Superman's people came back to get the codex. Or the diamond. That was in him or on his chest. To reestablish a civilization. And since we know that now these Supermen were black people, what they were saying was, somebody has stolen or destroyed our sun. How do we know that? How do we know that, like I told you before, like I said, you are a crystal. Your sun, they say, come from outer space because they have to make it seem like all this other stuff, that like that carbon-14, like they claim is radioactive, which is the only radioactive form of carbon, because they say that the actual carbon-6 is not radioactive, but an isotope, which is just like the same element, but it just behaves slightly different. And that's what they say carbon-14 is, and it's radioactive because they want to say carbon's not radioactive, so that's their excuse. So carbon, remember we said that we know that it's radioactive because that's what they measure. It's called carbon-14 dating, to measure a radioactive being if it's older than 50 years, right? So we understand that. So the thing is that what you have to understand is, when he realized that this carbon had to be kept under wraps, and he only could showcase it through his movies like Superman and even Iron Man, because remember, Iron Man is Superman without the carbon. That's why he has to create artificial intelligence all around him to become Superman. He's just merely in the Iron Age, as they say. And then remember, his Industrial Revolution came about when he discovered that when you add carbon to iron, you make steel. Hence the Industrial Revolution. Just finding out that you can add carbon to something caused a revolution amongst this elemental being. That's what you need to understand, what you need to know. Look, I think I almost lost my train of thought. Forgive me, because like I said, all this information just comes. But one of the things that I wanted to bring out, because there's so much information just pouring out of me. So, obviously I said this is going to be like 2 or 3 segments and stuff. So, just kind of bear with me, because I'm going to bring all this stuff full circle. Seems like I'm rambling on, but guys, I excel at bringing it all home. It was a movie. Now, if I told you that I came up with a movie, matter of fact, it was already a movie that came up like this. And you know exactly, we're going to refer back to Superman again for one last time. 2011, they came out with a cartoon called All-Star Superman. Basically, what happens is that All-Star Superman, Superman's, he's becoming weaker. They don't know why he's dying, because he's dying. That's what's going on. And so they changed the story up a little bit to, obviously throw you off. But the reality of it is that he's weakening, and then they encounter some it's like a dark being, very dark being, right? And it eats stars. It eats stars is what it does. And so what Superman has to confront this being, and then Superman also has this star-eating organism that he keeps in his lab or where he lives and stuff like that. And to make a long story short, as things go on, the being actually gets a hold of our sun and sucks out most of the radiation, as you see that these beings are doing, and they're taking out all of the power, using the power to create their matrix, and then also bring elemental being. That's why I said they're getting the helium. They're getting the helium. Now, mind you, they call it helium and helios for the sun, but actually they use it to cool things. Now that's got to jump out at you, to bring these cold, dark beings